I guess I'm starting that over because I tried to reposition my phone without my stand. And I'm probably not going to be... I don't know, maybe I'll do it a part 2. Fuck it, maybe I'll do it a part 2. So I'll have a part 1 and a part 2. Fuck it. Real-time problem solving. I'm like, fuck, not going to start this shit all over? So in the part 1 that I was just doing, that I accidentally exited out of, I was talking about, you know, just the craziness of people that think that we're wrong or we're bad or we're selfish or whatever, that we're trying to do it to punish somebody. No, we're doing it to it's self-preservation. That's what people don't realize. It's really self-preservation. And when I was reflecting on it myself, I came to the realization that I was put in a position by both of my parents to learn very early on to be self-sustained. I don't think that's necessarily a terrible thing. You know what I mean? I do think that all children should be able to know how to do some things. You know what I mean? They should have some chores. Their life skills, right? So I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but when it's to the point where you're all alone, basically, and you're all you have to rely on emotionally, mentally, you know, like, yes, am I being cared for as a shelter, food, and clothing? More or less, yes. And I'm not even mad about all that necessarily. Like, I really don't have any... Do you know what I mean? But it's like, I was put in a position where I was forced to be separate. Where I was forced to be alone because that was the safe place. By myself, with myself, trying to be small, that was the safe place. Okay? And I remember living in fear like every fucking day. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're talking about, I'm a pretty decent person, right? I feel like I was probably one of the easier kids growing up. Like, I didn't really cause a lot of problems necessarily, right? Especially like in my younger years. I wasn't somebody that was like always being disobedient or whatever. I feel like pretty much I was always pretty easygoing, you know what I mean? I wasn't really hard to manage, right? So why did the discipline have to be what it was? You know what I mean? I was not a difficult kid. I made simple mistakes that every child makes. And then I would get in trouble for a mistake, and it wouldn't be like, oh, like, you're grounded, or oh, let's talk about this, or oh, whatever, you know what I mean? It would immediately jump to like very physical discipline. And I mean, some of it, yeah, was me acting out as a teenager. But you have to keep in mind, I was sexually abused as a child. I come from an early divorce. You know what I mean? And I get it. I get that my parents didn't have the tools necessary, I guess, to understand what that really meant. You know what I mean? But it's like, when do you not think that, what if I'm failing my child by keeping up with the times, right? Like, carrying on the same shit that's always been done. Like, I just feel like if I had a child and they had been through some shit, I would be very mindful, and I would watch for patterns, and I would watch for signs, and I would try to do everything that I could to support them, and I would try to do everything that I could to encourage them. And I never got any of that. So I grew up in a home where I was very afraid. I always walked on eggshells. Like, every little thing that I could have done to, like, get in trouble, right? Like I was so afraid that I became very proficient at lying. Because even though we were taught from an early age, like, always tell the truth, even if you told the truth, you were still going to be treated badly. You still were going to get, like, the worst punishment you could get. Like, You know what I mean? Like, I've had, like, a fucking Houston Chronicle thrown at me and hit me in the fucking eye, the corner of it. You know what I mean? I've been dragged out of my bed, you know, first thing in the morning, and then, like, accused of basically being a slut. And, like, do you know what I mean? Like, basically dragged down the stairs and not even remembering my feet touching the floor until we got downstairs. And I'm standing there in front of my dad, who's poking me in the chest, basically accusing me of being a slut, telling me shit like the thing between my legs is itching, okay? And meanwhile, your brother did shit to me. And you're gonna try to say some shit like that to me as a teenager when I was way younger than a teenager when it happened. Do you know what it's like that kind of shit. So I'm supposed to have a relationship with this person because they're my dad? Or I'm supposed to have a relationship with my mom who was never there, and I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad or attacked. But here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. They forced me to learn how to survive basically on my own. Like, yes, was I provided for? Essentially, yes. But as far as, like, figuring out life, that was all me. That was me, my friends, my family members who stepped in and tried to help. And I've heard multiple people tell me, we considered having you move in with us. Why would you do that? Do you know what I mean? Like, why would you feel like one was my mom's best friend and one was a family member on my dad's side? And why would people say stuff like that if everything was hunky-dory? Have you ever seen some family that's perfectly functional and you're like, oh, I think really it would be good for you to come live with me? I tried to go live with my grandmother and my dad's dad, and my dad's dad was like, no, they need to raise their own kids. Do you know what I mean? And then, okay, so this is what you get. You put nothing in and you get nothing out of me. That's how the fuck it goes. And that was a comment that I saw yesterday on one of these posts, and I was like, bro, that is the mic drop, because that is the real crux of the situation. Okay, is that, and this person was like, I work in healthcare and I see this all the time. Older people who are getting elderly are expecting their children, their adult children, to step in, take care of them financially, physically, and emotionally or something. And the problem is, it's like they're trying to make a withdrawal from a fund they never paid into. If you were never there, you never paid into the relationship with me. And now there is nothing for you to withdraw. If you were unkind to me and shitty to me and you made me hate myself and you were abusive to me, you took when there already wasn't. You're already at a fucking deficit. There's nothing here for you to withdraw. And that's not my fault. And that's not my problem. That is the adult. And then there's people on there being like, and I'm not going to say that there probably aren't some kids that are literally spoiled, okay? That probably misuse their parents and abuse their parents in that capacity. And that's the parent allowing that to even happen. You created that situation. And that was one of the things that I said on the thing. I'm like, I really don't feel like, I'm not going to say there's not that situation where people have adult children who are ungrateful and they're just spoiled and they weren't really taught, like, maybe, I don't want to say manners because it's not manners, but it's just like properness, right? Of like how to be as a person, how to treat other people. I at least did learn those things, not always necessarily from my parents, but I did at least learn those things. And a lot of it I did learn from my dad. Don't get me wrong. Like, there are things that I am grateful for from my dad, but not enough for me to put myself in a situation that's going to hurt me, trigger me, upset me. It's not fucking worth it. It's just not fucking worth it. Like, and maybe someday I'll regret it. Maybe someday I will, but what I was saying on the video that I was commenting on was, I lost my thought. Fuck. Oh, I was talking about how there's a lot of people on here acting like their children are just ungrateful and there's nothing more to this story. And I say, I'm not going to say that's not the case, because some of those probably are true. I said, but for the amount of times that I see that being stated, to me, it really feels like people are trying to deflect and not look honestly at the situation. You know what I mean? And it's like, when you have been either not part of a person's life or a negative part of a person's life, they learn to live without you. They learn that life is better without you. And that's not my doing. That's not my fault. And in some situations, I've tried to have a relationship, and I was never the one chosen. Never the one chosen. And now I'm supposed to be something to somebody that they never poured into me. And I'm the bad guy. Because I only have one mom. I only have one dad. Yeah, I only have one life to live too. You know what I mean? I only have one existence. And I'm not about to spend it trying to live up to some standard that I'm supposed to be there for my parents or have a relationship with them if I don't feel like they're good or safe for me. And even though as an adult now, I can speak for myself, I can advocate for myself, I can leave somewhere if I want to leave somewhere, like a lot of times it's not even worth it. Like I try to imagine what it would be like if I actually really did reconnect with my dad, because I did. I think in 2019 I sent him like this whole last letter, and I was just like, I'm done carrying this fucking baggage, this is yours, and I'm done with it, you know, just basically pointing out all the ways that, you know, you never encouraged me, you always told me I'd be nothing, you always told me I'd have nothing, all these other things happen, blah 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 blah, you know what I mean? And so what, now that's supposed to be healthy for me to have a relationship with you? Like, and I think back to when my mom's mom passed away and he showed up unknowingly to the funeral, and I literally, like, it was bad for me. It was very hard for me. It was very triggering for me. The minute he walked through the door, I swear I felt my entire breath leave. And a friend was with me, and she was like, your face turned as white as the inside of your grandmother's casket, basically. So what does that tell you? Do you know what I mean? Like, what does that really tell people? And I'm not out here trying to like paint my dad some villain, you know what I mean? He's clearly got problems, but he'll never admit that he has. Because I don't know how anybody could operate the way that he operates and never be like, oh, I seem to push away all the people I care about. It must be, maybe I need to look at myself. You know what I mean? I don't think that people that want to have a relationship with me are ever going to reach that aha moment where they really have a come to Jesus moment with themselves and sit down and say, I might be the common denominator. I need to look at this a little more closely. I need to look at this a little more deeply. And I really don't think that the number of adult children who are going no contact, I know during some of this more recent identity crisis that's been going on, and like political differences, and I don't think that's, and that might play into it some too, right? Like, I'm not going to say those people don't exist, because I know those people exist, okay? So maybe those are the people they're talking about, and if so, cool, I get it, but you need to specify. You need to specify, my child quit talking to me because I voted for Trump, or my child quit talking to me because I believe in alligator Alcatraz, or my child stopped talking to me because I'm not willing to accept their identity crisis, or, okay, fine. Fair enough. That's fair enough for you to be mad about that. I'd be mad about that too. I'd be fucking irritated because I don't think that's how people should be. I think that you should respect the fact that other people have different beliefs, opinions, and feelings and experiences, and recognize that it plays a part in everything, right? Like, if you're in an echo chamber, you're not going to grow. You need to surround yourself with other people that do have varying beliefs and thoughts, and not write them off. Like, I know in my past relationship, my ex was trying to write off one of his longtime friends because he liked Trump and he felt, you know what I mean? And I'm not here to make shit political. I'm not. I'm just saying, like, in the current climate of the world, like, these are things where I could understand someone getting their feathers ruffled if this was the reason that their adult child had nothing to do with them. But I think more often than not, and overall, harm was done. You know? And then I saw this one comment where this woman was like, oh, these adult children out here are so busy crying about what we did to them that we don't even have time to heal. Okay, that's not our fault. Like, and here's the thing too, because I almost commented on that comment, but I was like, let it be, Nicole. Like, don't even, because I'm sure I'm gonna have enough fucking the things that I did say. I'm sure there's gonna be enough fucking responses, and some of them I'm gonna have to let it go. You know what I mean? Some of them I'm just gonna have to know that no response is a response and not even reply, because it's pointless sometimes. Sometimes it's pointless. Like, to get into arguments on the internet that are not going to go anywhere, they're not going to be productive, it's pointless. And it's taken me a long time to learn that, you know, and to kind of, you know, hone that skill of mine to, like, know when a battle is worth fighting and when it's not worth fighting. And you're not going to change the mind of anybody by being, like, bitchy to them or calling them out, unfortunately, right? Like, I can state the facts and truth all day long, but I guarantee you that's not going to be what makes people change. What's going to make people change is me saying, I understand what you're saying. And I think that's what a lot of these adult children that are going no contact, they need someone to say, I understand. And not it just be empty fucking words. We need people to say, I'm going to work on me. Like, we want you to work on you. We want you to do the fucking work, so that you can heal and grow and maybe take some accountability that's going to help mend the things that you say you want to mend. You know, and just going through life being like, well, my parents this, and we never did that when I was little, and oh my gosh, all the bad things that happened to me. Well, you know, I'm sorry for you that y'all came up in a generation where it was the status quo to sweep everything under the fucking rug. I think that plays a much bigger part in adult children now not having contact with their parents than probably anybody's willing to admit. And I do feel for the previous generations who have faced a lot of difficult times, who have faced being abused themselves. Okay, it's not that we're heartless, it's not that we don't care, you know what I mean? But it's like, you have to be willing to meet me where I'm at a little bit if you want me to be able to meet you where you're at. Like, yeah, I'm an adult, but you're still the parent. You're still the parent. You still expect the respect, which means you're still the authority. So shouldn't you be the one to make the moves? I don't know. I'm over here just, I'm not saying what I'm feeling, stating, or experiencing is fact. I'm not saying that. I'm speaking strictly from my own personal experiences. I have an opinion about the situation, and I'm going to verbalize it. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to ruffle feathers or hurt people's feelings. I'm trying to get people to understand, like, you can't come out here making blanket statements, acting like we're just ungrateful and selfish. The fact of the matter is, we said no where y'all would not. We said no more where y'all would not. We said this ends with me where y'all did not. And unfortunately, sometimes when it ends with us, that means some other things unfortunately must end also. So if I'm saying I'm not willing to continue on this pattern, and the pattern makers are not changing the pattern with me, then I have to cut off the pattern maker. Because how else does it end with me? I just keep going through the same thing over and over and over, and being the one to change, and then nobody else changes, and then I'm just supposed to do all the work that I haven't already been doing the work of survival. And that's another thing too. Like, a lot of times when adult children go no contact, it's an act of survival. Regardless of the fact that, like, you can't hurt us anymore the way that you did, doesn't change the fact that the mental damage is done. You know, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And that's just like whenever my dad showed up at the funeral, and I turned fucking white, and like tears started rolling down my face, and I had to like just run to the bathroom and like basically hide, and I did not want to fucking come out. And like, I could just feel the arrogance of my dad. Like, I remember we had to like sit at the front row at the funeral, and like people would like walk by and like give their condolences to the family, and like I remember my dad, and I just kept my head down the whole time. And I could just feel the arrogance. Like, I could feel that he was getting I don't want to say like getting off, but I could feel that he was feeling some kind of superiority. Like he was getting something positive out of the way that he knew his presence was making me feel. You know, and then, you know, people have the audacity to act like I don't know what I did to you. And then, you know, he wrote me this letter. He wrote me a letter basically being like, I don't know what I did to make you so mad at me. And in that same letter, he was like, if I had things to do all over again, I would do them the same. And in the response that I wrote to him many years later to that, I'm like, so what you're saying is if you knew that I was trying to kill myself as a teenager, you wouldn't have changed anything that you did. Like, if you had known, if you had been aware enough and not just this agent of anger all the time, you know what I mean, then you wouldn't have changed anything, knowing that I used to cut myself, knowing that I'd contemplated walking out to 518 and stepping in front of an 18-wheeler. Like, that's how bad it was. Like, I was ready to just end it. But the thing is, like, there was this part of me that was like, if I go out like that, he wins. If I go out like that, he wins. And I just couldn't do it. Like, that was the one thing that kept me alive, was the spite I had to not give him any fucking inch of having any say of how my life was going to go. You know, I think a lot of my life I've spent trying to prove people wrong, you know, and then I reached a point where I was like, I really don't give a fuck what people think or say anymore. Like, I just want to be happy. I just want to be healthy. You know what I mean? I want to feel peace. And that's hard to do when you're battling PTSD. And for me, it's complex PTSD. Really and truly. So, and that's the things that, you know, that they don't talk about. And I get it that, like, a lot of this stuff has only just become known, right? But, like, how come when new information comes forward, people don't say, oh my God, I never knew, I'm so sorry. I never realized how what I did damaged you on a neurological level. And I posted something the other day on Instagram where they were talking about PTSD and CPTSD being a trigger for making someone neurotypical. And they talked about, like, emotional dysregulation and not being able to make choices and being anxious and, like, all these things that come from that. And another thing too that I want to talk about, because they're out here trying to, like, they're trying to demonize therapy, saying that people that are going no contact are weaponizing therapy and their therapist is telling them to go no contact. And while I'm not going to say that's not true, I'm just going to say I never had therapy growing up. I was going no contact before any therapist had even diagnosed me with PTSD. You know, and it was a decision that I felt I was making for my survival. And another thing that I noticed in the comments was somebody talking about, these are all the brat kids, basically, and children who are abused hang on. And I said, y'all, when I read that, I was just like, this bitch. And I was just like, no, that's not what happens. You know what I mean? I said, for someone to hold on, that's a cycle. That's a cycle they can't break. That's no different than when you're in a domestic partnership and there's abuse, whether it's the man or the woman or both or whatever, and they keep going back and they keep going back. It's a cycle they can't break because they don't see the value and worth within themselves. They don't have the love within themselves. And to some degree, you know, it really boils down to that, because the reality is that person that's being abusive is probably narcissistic. Okay, I know we throw that word around a lot, but the reality is they're probably narcissistic, possibly psychopathic. Okay, and they look for people, and I've talked about this before too. They know who and what to look for, and they look for people that have low self-worth, people that don't love and value themselves, Those are their targets because those are the only people they can manipulate. They're never going to get with somebody that thinks highly of themselves. They're never going to get with somebody who's very productive and successful. Okay, abusers will never get with somebody like that because they can't control and manipulate them. Mostly. I probably shouldn't say never, but it's unlikely. You can Google it. You can research it. Narcissists will always try to pick someone who comes from a broken home, has low self-worth, low self-esteem, and that's exactly how the girls that ended up with Epstein because they were trying to get away from a rough life, and they already didn't think highly of themselves because they'd been abused and made to feel like they're nothing and no one to anybody, and that's exactly how that happens. And so people who go through that type of treatment, that type of conditioning, why are we surprised that they decide they want to go no contact? Do you think it's fucking easy? Do you think it's easy to